My name is Ryan Mitchie, and I work the night shift at a convenience store just off the highway. It wasn't a bad job. Quiet most nights. From say 8 p.m. to 7 a.m., I was usually alone, restocking shelves, cleaning, and waiting for the occasional customer who needed coffee or cigarettes. That night started like any other. Nothing felt strange. Nothing felt wrong. That's why I still think about it. Around midnight, the store went completely quiet. No cars outside, no footsteps. Even the hum of the refrigerators felt louder than usual. I checked the clock behind the counter, then looked at the security monitor. Our camera feeds showed the same thing. Empty aisles, empty entrance, empty parking lot. I remember thinking how strange it was to feel watched while knowing I was alone. At 12:17 a.m., the front door sensor chimed. The sound echoed through the store, sharp and sudden. I looked up, expecting to see someone walking in, but the door stayed closed. The bell didn't ring again. On the comida, the entrance remained empty. I stood there, staring, waiting for something to move. Nothing did. I told myself it was just a sensor glitch. Old building, old equipment. Still, I walked around the store, checking every aisle. Everything was exactly where it should be. No items out of place, no doors open. When I returned to the counter, I noticed the coffee machine light was on. I was sure I had turned it off earlier. The next hour passed slowly, too slowly. Every few minutes, I checked the cameras again. Always the same empty images. At 1:42 a.m., the parking lot camera flickered for half a second. When it came back, one of the parking spaces was occupied. A car had appeared without ever driving in. I leaned closer to the screen, my heart beating faster. The car's lights were off. The engine wasn't running. No one got out. I rewound the footage. The car was just there. No arrival. No movement. Just a parked vehicle that hadn't existed a moment before. Minutes passed. The car didn't move. I didn't go outside. I locked the front door and turned off the automatic sensor. I told myself I'd deal with it later. Then, on the screen, the camera angle shifted slightly. Not enough to trigger an alert. Just enough to notice. That's when the back door alert went off. A soft beep, one I'd only heard during fire drills. I looked at the camera feed for the storage room. The door was closed, but the red warning light above it was on. I didn't investigate. I stayed behind the counter, watching the screens. One by one, the cameras started losing signal. Static replaced the images. First the aisles, then the parking lot. The last feed to go dark was the one pointed at the front door. When my shift ended, the screens came back on by themselves. The car was gone, the warning light was off, everything looked normal. I clocked out and never worked another night shift there again. Sometimes I still drive past that store. It's open, bright, normal, and that makes it worse. My name is Michael Reeves, and I worked the night shift as a parking lot attendant for a shopping center on the edge of the city. From the SPM to 6 a.m., my job was to sit alone in a small booth, watch the cameras, and make sure no one parked there after closing time. It was boring work, but predictable. And that's exactly why what happened still bothers me. Once the stores closed, the entire place felt abandoned. Rows of empty parking spaces stretched out under tall light poles that buzzed softly in the dark. The city noise faded, replaced by wind and distant traffic. Most nights, nothing happened at all. I spent most of my shifts watching the monitors more out of habit than concern. The cameras covered every corner of the lot, entrance, exit booth, empty space after empty space. Seeing everything empty was normal. Around midnight, the silence felt heavier than usual. No cars passed on the nearby road. Even the buzzing lights seemed quieter. I leaned back in my chair and checked the cameras again. That's when I noticed a car parked near the far end of the lot. Just one, under a light, perfectly still. At first, I shrugged it off. People forgot their cars sometimes. What bothered me was that I hadn't seen it arrive. I rewound the entrant camera footage, watching carefully. No headlights, no car entering. One moment, the space was empty. The next moment, the car was there. I told myself I must have missed it. Maybe I looked away. Maybe I blinked. Still, something about the car felt deliberate. It was centered perfectly in the space. No crooked angles, no rush to park it. Minutes passed. Then more. The car didn't move. No doors opened. No interior light turned on. I kept checking the screen, waiting for proof that someone was inside. At 1:12 a.m., the parking lot lights flickered once, just a brief flash. When they stabilized, I felt my stomach tighten. The car was closer to my booth. I rewound the footage again. There was no movement recorded. One frame, it was farther away. The next frame, it wasn't. Cars don't move like that. I sat still, watching the screen. My hands rested on the desk, but I didn't realize they were shaking until I noticed the radio vibrating slightly. I told myself I would get out and check if it moved again. Before I could stand up, the camera feed glitched. Static filled the screen for less than a second. When the image returned, the car was directly in front of my booth. I looked up from the screen and saw it through the glass. No headlights, no engine sound, just the dark outline of a car sitting too close. Then the interior light of the car turned on. No door up in it, no shadow moved, just the light glowing steadily. I locked the booth door without thinking. When my shift ended, the car was gone. The cameras showed an empty lot again. I waited until daylight to leave the booth. I quit that job the same day, and every time I passed that parking lot at night, I checked the spaces, just to make sure nothing is waiting there.